What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and we're going to be looking at the next Sugofest exclusive character in this batch, talking about the synergies and how you could potentially use this character outside of this batch, because that's one of the great things about this Sugofest exclusive batch, is that while all three of the characters can synergize together and can work within their own little bubble, these characters are units that can work outside of the characters that they debuted with, which is very, very good. And we don't really get an end-of-month batch that is this higher quality, which is why I'm making dedicated videos for these units, because the synergies that these characters have is pretty absurd, and they've done a really good job at making these characters very, very good with previously released characters. So we'll discuss that. I've made a dedicated video for Alba. Definitely go check it out, because some of the synergies that he has is just kind of crazy. So we're going to talk about Dracula MIHAWK here today. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of the artwork. I get that this scene is dope, but I think the artwork could have been a little cooler. There's just not much really going on, I guess, but then again, there really wasn't much going on in this fight either. I mean, Zoro kind of took the L, but, you know, we move. Let's go ahead and talk about MIHAWK and see what he is doing. So, the thing about MIHAWK is that there is one very clear synergy with this guy, and that's going to be 10th Anniversary Shanks. So we're going to definitely be, you know, bringing this guy up and talking about how the synergies work really well with this guy. So, the first thing is first is... let's just break it down. Like, how do these two characters work together so well? Well, first of which, they both have the same types and classes. Both Shanks and MIHAWK are both Psi Cerebral Slashers, so that obviously makes a pretty big difference as well. But the way that they work together to just give you crazy good damage, like, is so good. So let's go ahead and break it down. So at least, what would you be doing, right? So if you have, let's say, MIHAWK captain and then Shanks is your other captain, while these two are together, you've got MIHAWK here that makes Psi recovery and tandem slots beneficial for the crew, and then you've got Shanks, and Shanks says that he changes int and dex slots into Psi slots. So what this ultimately means is that you're going to have, Psi, recovery, tandem, int, and dex slots are going to be matching, meaning that the only slots that you naturally receive that are not going to be matching are strength and quick slots. That's literally it. And of course, Shanks has an ability to change slots into matching, so that's going to be dope too. But just naturally having so many matching slots is a pretty big deal, right? That's actually really, really good. So there's obviously that. MIHAWK as a captain actually gives you quite a lot of damage. I mean, he gives you essentially a permanent 6x bonus. But one thing to note though, is that when you, with the way that this kind of works, you basically get a 5.25 times attack. And it will always be 5.25. However, when you perform your first attack, it's going to be 5.25. As soon as you hit a perfect, it goes all the way up to 6. And it's going to stay at 6 until you miss a perfect. As soon as you miss a perfect, the next character will go back down to 5.25. And it will basically be like that. So as long as you consistently hit perfects, you're going to keep that 6x bonus. This does make a pretty big difference though when you actually have a look at the fact that this character, talking about Shanks, has Rush Sugo Special. The way that his Rush Sugo Special works is that he can be the first tap of the chain, or he can be the 6th tap of a chain. So this is kind of interesting, because if you're going to be performing this rush and MIHAWK is your captain, you actually don't really want to have it as the first tap. I'm not 100% sure on the math behind whether as soon as you start the rush, you click on him, he performs the rush. Maybe the first tap of rush is not considered a 6x bonus, but then if you consistently hit the rush consecutively and being successful, maybe that will scale up to 6x. I'm not too sure on the math on that one, but just keep that in mind. But the fact that he has a rush is a big deal. So we have a look at that captain ability. Of course, you get the chain buff, which is really dope. Just the passive chain increase is really good. Gives you a lot more additional damage. And this is a chain addition that can stack with other chain additions. We've seen this before, but it's a very, very cool effect. And anytime you activate an attack boost, you extend it, which is dope. And then let's have a look at like what would be best case scenario. So I think that what you would activate first is the MIHAWK superclass. The superclass, you get Super Slasher, of course, which is good. Now you actually get a 25% heal, which I think is kind of underrated, especially if you end up using the Rush Sugo Special of Shanks. Having the ability to heal your HP so that you can get more out of the Rush Sugo Special is a big deal. He also gives you a 1.5 times color affinity boost that can be overwritten. This is part of the reason why this guy is going to be so good with Shanks. This 1.5 overrideable color affinity boost is amazing. He also gives himself a tandem slot that cannot be changed until you tap perfect, so you essentially guaranteeing the fact that you're going to have a super tandem that turn, and also boost the attack of the next final tap performed by a slasher or cerebral, and if you end up doing Shanks as your final tap for his rush, then this additional 25% bonus damage is going to make a big difference with him, right? So I think after you perform the MIHAWK superclass ability, what you would want to do is activate some type of attack boost. Now, MIHAWK does actually give you an attack boost, but he also says that if you already have one activated, then you get a tap timing chain buff for 2 turns. Otherwise, 3x attack boost for 2 turns. What I think would be cool is if, like, you have some type of other attack boost, and then you activate MIHAWK to get the tap timing chain buff, or if you have an overwritable attack buff, then you go ahead and use MIHAWK, so you can actually get both of these abilities to activate simultaneously. On top of that, you also get good utility, and you also get the increased damage taken that goes through full immunity, and the fact that he removes attack down and threshold, and I believe Shanks, he removes Rainbow Shield, right? Let me just pull it up real quick. Special ability reduces Rainbow Shield by 10, Barrier by 3, really, really good effect. So you got this guy that can remove Barrier, you got Rainbow Shield, and you've got Threshold and Attack Down covered from these 2 units. And then remember that Shanks is a captain, he also removes 10 turns of bind duration, so again, just more utility is never a bad thing. So after activating some type of attack boost and then MIHAWK, or an overrideable attack boost and then MIHAWK, you're going to get tap timing chain buff, you're going to get an attack boost from either another special or from his override, increased damage taken of course, and then from there you can activate the Shanks special ability. Now the way that Shanks' special works in regards to an overrideable buff is really cool. So it says that if you have a color affinity boost when you launch the special, you get a 3.0 chain boundary for 2 turns, but then it will also say that, like, if you don't have a color affinity buff, then you get a 3.5 to 4x color affinity for 2 turns depending on your action special. So the really cool thing about this is that if you have an overrideable buff, it will literally just do both of these things at the same time. So it says, oh, you have a color affinity boost, you get the really good chain buff, and then it says, oh, okay, do you have a color, then it'll just give you a color affinity boost because there's an overrideable one instead. So Shanks can give you 4 times color affinity and 3.0 chain boundary at the same time, and then also increases the effect of any attack buff that you have by 1.5 times. Let's say, you know, for the sake of MIHAWK, what is it, a 3 times buff? So that goes up to 4.5, right? Let me just see that real quick. 3 times 1.5. MIHAWK special goes up to a 4.5 times attack boost. Like, that's crazy, dude. And then, of course, after you do all of that, you can then go ahead and get the EX Super of Shanks, which allows you to get a 2.5 times orb boost for 2 turns. So you get 4 times color affinity, 4.5 times attack, 2.5 times orb boost, 3.0 chain boundary, passive chain addition from MIHAWK's captain ability, tap timing chain buff potentially from the MIHAWK special, increased damage taken, great utility across the board. This guy just works perfectly with Shanks. He's such a beast, man. He's so cool. I love that they have this fantastic synergy between these two. Like, you have like this brand new character that's come out that has great synergy with the old units. It just breathes a bunch of life into these older characters, which is just so cool to see. So I think that this is going to be the key unit that's going to be used with MIHAWK a lot of the time. What I will say though is that the fact that MIHAWK doesn't have a passive utility effect in his captain ability is a little underwhelming, but the fact that he gives you -2 turns to cooldown versus gauge and switch effect, that is quite good. I mean, that you just don't see that very often, right? Potentially, if there's going to be like captain switch shenanigans, having double MIHAWK to give you -4 to all of these is pretty absurd. And again, just versus characters are infinitely useful in Super Boss Kizuna's sense. You know, obviously some of the versus abilities that we have are very, very strong. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all works. On top of all of this, his Super Tandem is also very, very good, providing a 2.25 times attack boost to Slasher Cerebral, and he also gives 25% final tap damage, and it's a 1-tap Super Tandem, and you can just use Shanks. So, another reason why this guy just works so goddamn well with this unit. Being able to do 1-tap Super Tandem for 2.25 bonus damage is absurd. I'm telling you, One-tap super tandems, very rare characters do it. It's not very common you see it, and when you do have an ability to do that, it just adds so much damage, because it's just an additional character on your crew that will just get more damage. You know, typically super tandems are at least 2 characters or 3 characters you have to tap with, the unit that has a super tandem, and then 2 additional units for a total of 3. The fact that this guy can do it, tap 1 other unit, boom, 2.25 bonus damage. It's big. It actually does help. So the synergy between these two is going to be so cool to use. Again, like, we'll see when this batch drops, because I would love to test out using like Shanks with this guy as a friend captain, and when it does drop, I'll likely give you guys a video in regards to that, because I think it's going to be a ton of fun. That's going to wrap it up for me in regards to Dracula Mihawk in this video, but like there are a ton of other synergies that are going to work really well with Mihawk. Zoro and Sanji obviously is going to work really well with this guy, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions about it down below in the comment section. Really hope you guys enjoyed this video today, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like, and if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.